Hi everybody, this is Phil in the Philippines. Welcome back to Phil and Jen in the Philippines. You haven't met Jen yet, but I'm still trying to entice her onto the front of the camera, so you'll soon see. As you can see from the previous videos, I've had a rather aggressive haircut, a shave, and hopefully I won't look as grubby as I once did. This video has been brought to you by Dumaguete Expat Services Club. They're sponsoring the film today. They're an expat advisory service that you can find online. If you go to Google and look up expat services, Dumaguete Expat Services Club on Google, you'll locate them, go through, have a look. They're there to advise on anyone contemplating coming to the Philippines for a short or extended period of time. Anyway, enough of that. Well, what's the big news? The previous 4 or so videos that I did post were made in Mitum in the southern part of the Philippines, where my wife and I lived for approximately 7 years. Previous to that, we were in General Santos for 2 years. I have, through a set of circumstances, decided to leave Mitum and the house I built there. And we can go on to the type of house I built and what I'd recommend in another video, but just to give you some background, I arrived in Mitum from General Santos to build a house on some land that my wife's family owned, my wife owned, beachfront property, and we successfully built a container home from scratch because of the lack of timber. My first preference was to build a timber home, and then because of the rather shitty quality of some of the building materials, such as the hollow block and whatever, I decided not to build in that. And plus you've got a rising damp problem being close to the beach and whatever, so I decided on container homes. I built that and we resided in that for about 5 years, and then because we were rather isolated, it's in the provinces, we decided that the kids were getting a little bit older, we wanted a better standard of schooling for them. I have 2 stepchildren and a step-grandchild. And we decided that we should look for another place, for how long I don't know, a little bit more civilized, for want of a better word, a few more amenities. And to be quite honest with you, I was lacking a bit of expat companionship, conversations and whatever. There were, in the area, Tom, there were only three expats that in that particular area, and after a while the conversation became a little bit stale and whatever. So we thought, anyway, cut a long story short, we thought we'd give another place a go, so I decided to come to Dumaguete, which is in Negros Oriental, which is north of Mindanao, the next island group up in the Visayas region of the Philippines. A couple of reasons for that. It is an established city, it has a large expat population, it has all the facilities that my wife and I required to settle, had better quality schools, and so we decided to take the plunge and move up. We can go into the difficulties in moving in the Philippines at a later time if anyone wants to know. Just before we go on, obviously what I'd like everyone to do is subscribe. Please, it costs nothing to subscribe, so do that. Give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I'm not thin-skinned, and what I'd like everyone to do is comment and give me some indication of what you'd like to hear about, whatever, on these vlogs. The subject of today's vlog is, I suppose, what's going to annoy, for want of a better word, an expat when he enters into a relationship with a Filipina. Simply through cultural differences and whatever, and what can really get on an expat's goat. They're only small things, but after a while those small things get larger and larger, and unless it's talked about, it can really cause some friction within a relationship. Now, for those that are the Filipinas and Filipino and Pinays and that will find this particular vlog, the reason I'm doing this is this is a cultural difference between the Philippines and the Western world on a whole, and they're the things that people from the West really find difficult. So it's not a direct go at the Philippines. It is in a number of ways as far as our culture is concerned. It's not meant to be detrimental, more informative, so people can then make allowances when they come here. They're pre-warned of these particular idiosyncrasies that the Philippines have, and they can probably enter into this type of thing with a little bit more patience than they normally would. Okay, the first thing that you'll find once you come to the Philippines is, we'll start with the worst and go to the best. Everyone can talk about fabulous things about the Philippines, and they will vary from place to place. And just another preference, I must say, this is in reference to my experience and the areas that I have travelled in the Philippines. It is not a generic answer to the questions. It's just that if someone finds themselves in Mindanao or in Visayas, they may understand what I'm talking about. It may be totally different to the north, and people have got to remember there's 7,641 islands in the Philippines. There's over 170 languages originally spoken here, and each of these ethnic groups are like chalk and cheese. To say a Filipino acts this way and is generic is incorrect. So I'm only going to give information on my observations. Okay, let's get into it. What can annoy the crap out of a Westerner when they come to the Philippines? I suppose we'll start off with the noise. As you can hear, it's very difficult to get away from noise in the Philippines. A lot of people think that they come here and they decide to either rent or build a house, and let's go to the provinces where it's quiet in the countryside, which in the West to a certain degree, the countryside of the provinces or whatever are considered to be a quiet place. Well, here it's not applicable. If it's not motorcycles, as you can hear in the background, and it's impossible to get away from motorcycles because I would suggest that the vast majority of the population ride motorcycles, and the unfortunate thing about them is they have a tendency to extract the baffles out of the exhaust pipes, which make them louder. This is a lot of young guys, obviously trying to draw attention to themselves, even though it is illegal here to have baffleless exhaust. They do it, and no one seems to take too much notice of it. But it is terribly annoying and noisy, especially at night. And you think if you go to the provinces and you're going to get away from that, that's not the case. As we know, if you go into the countryside, sound travels just probably further than the city. So that's something you've got to put up with. Then you've got the additional thing, whether you're in the city or the country, you're going to have roosters, chickens, pigs. And I've been in Manila at times, in inner city Manila, and still heard roosters in the morning. That's not like the city centre like Makati and whatever. I can't say they've ever heard there, but areas of capital cities still have roosters. They still keep roosters as domesticated pets. And as soon as you get to the outskirts of the city, there is the old pigs and squealing and carrying on, as well as the motorcycles. So as I mentioned once before, for little people they make a lot of noise. And then you've got the Filipinos themselves. They have a tendency to speak in a volume far higher than what most of us are used to. They talk over you, and to get a thought in their head, once they decide that they're going to let it out, they will let it out over the top of someone speaking, simply so they don't forget it, or they will get into a group of people very in close proximity and they will talk at volumes you think, oh my God, can't you just keep it down? Well, you can request a million times that they won't keep it down. It's part of their nature. Then we come to the boogeymen of the karaoke. Again, cities and whatever are not exempt from this. The main form of relatively cheap entertainment is the karaoke machine. Now, I don't really understand why they have a volume knob on these things where they can turn them down, because they only ever play karaoke at maximum volume that the machine can actually handle. So you may be in a premises alongside a gate, and next door is having a party, some event, and they will not even contemplate turning the thing down because it may be annoying you. It's almost like a situation where they want everyone to hear. And the fallacy that with karaoke everyone sings well in the Philippines is another misnomer. You know, yes, there are a lot of fabulous singers in the Philippines, but by God, there is just as big a proportion of bad singers. The thing that never ceases to amaze me in regard to karaoke is that in the West, if you know you've got a lousy voice, simply out of a matter of embarrassment, there's no way you'll get up there 9 times out of 10 and sing at full volume in a karaoke machine because you know your voice isn't much chop. It doesn't matter here. They encourage everyone to sing, and unfortunately you might get 9 to 10 songs, 12 songs before you get someone that can actually carry a tune, and it is excruciating, especially if it's only next door or the house up and whatever. The philo mentality, there is no, one can only say that there is no consideration given to what you as a person may want. If they have the karaoke machine, you're going to hear it. Now if you complain, if you go and complain, they will not take any notice of it. You'll probably get in the bad book, so it's one of those things that you just put up with. You know, put your head under a pillow and whatever. Fortunately, in a lot of cities they do have a period of, under legislation, a time period for these events to take place. Some places it's karaoke must go off at 10 o'clock, some 9, etc, etc, and but it also depends on the event. If it's a funeral where they're raising money to bury the deceased person, the authorities have a tendency to turn a blind eye. So it's not unusual, or a wedding, oh my God, a wedding. It's not unusual for the karaoke to go 24 hours a day for 3 days or longer, and it can be very frustrating. So keep in mind when you rent a place or you build a place, the noise factor will drive you crazy. Now the other thing is too, the common consideration of what we would consider to be manners, waiting in line, not interrupting, this type of thing, is not really adhered to over here. You'll be waiting in line for somebody, and if you leave a gap of around about 18 inches or greater, or half a metre between you and the next person, don't be surprised if someone comes along and just plonks themselves in that gap. Yeah, this is 1, embarrassing, and 2, infuriating, and it could end up in a situation where you have words and everyone will look at you as though you're in the wrong. So you keep in mind, if you're lined up for anything, if you're being served, this constant interruption may occur. If you are talking to a shop assistant and someone comes along for some reason, and I don't know why, and someone wants something from that shop assistant, they'll just break in and talk to them. And the unreasonable thing about it is the shop assistant will attend to them even though they're attending to you, usually first. Infuriating. But it's something, by you carrying on like a pork chop, is not going to change. So you're better off biting your tongue, letting it get on, do their thing, and have the shop assistant come across and complete your transaction. Other infuriating things are the lunch hours. In most small centres, small shops, hardware stores and whatever, from around about 12 to 1, the shop closes. Now I've been in a situation where I was buying nearly 500,000 pesos worth of building material. I had a huge list. I went to the local hardware store and I was going to spend 500,000 pesos is a huge amount of money here. And I was halfway through the order. The guy was attentively seeking what I had on my list, and then all of a sudden he went away and didn't come back. And I'm standing there for 15-20 minutes realising what the hell's going on. And then someone, I think my wife actually, said, well, it's lunchtime. I said, so what? He had, in midway of the order, decided, oh, it's 12 o'clock. Behind me, unbeknownst to me, the shutters had come down on the store, and I'm standing there like a stale bottle of pee, waiting for him to come back, and he's in the back room having his lunch. Again, infuriating. Service here, abysmal. You can go to a supermarket, and when I say supermarket, a mall, or whatever, do your shopping, and you've got a trolley full of goods. You will then go to the checkout, and there will be a huge line, and the time period, it would take you 20 minutes to 30 minutes to do your shopping. It'll take you up to an hour to get out of the shop and pay for your goods. Why? I just don't know. Well, I do. Everyone checks everybody here. They even though they've got scanning devices which you would think would increase the speed, it doesn't. They check everything, they write it down, they then get someone else, and for God's sake, don't try to bag your own goods because you're taking someone's job. Someone will then bag it. And then it's as slow as the second coming of Christ. Then you pick up your gear. God forbid, do not fail to pick up your receipt, which should be stapled to one of the plastic bags. You'll go to the door, then the security guard will check your goods and check it against your receipt, and then they'll let you out. It is a time-consuming, slow, frustrating thing. Other things, your partner. It all boils down to losing face. The common thing is that Philos are never wrong, especially Pinays. Your wife is never wrong, and this, if you really analyse it, boils down to the fact that she can't lose face. If she is wrong, she has to have someone to blame, and usually in the circumstances you will be the one to blame for some spurious reason that something has gone wrong. The other thing is they have no patience whatsoever. Many a thing may go wrong in the household, from putting up a picture frame or doing some menial task of which normal people say, listen, I'll go down tomorrow morning, this could be 9 o'clock at night, and I'll pick up a bracket to put this picture frame up or this shelf up or whatever. This will not be good enough. You'll either say, I'll go down in the morning, we'll do it then. Don't be surprised, 15-20 minutes later, your wife's got a 6-inch nail that she's scavenged from somewhere, and she's banging it with a rock in the wall to put the hanger up. You know, it goes on and on and on. They're small things, but they are frustrating things. And then the nail will eventually fall out of the wall, cause more damage to the wall than it's worth. Yeah. And the fault was, if you say, look what you've done, you've made a hole in the bloody wall, and now I have to repair it. Well, it's your fault because you didn't go and do it when she requested to do it. It's just little tiny things. You know, you have got to basically instruct. Say, I will do it tomorrow. Do not put anything, do not put the nails up. There's a good chance she'll sulk with you because you didn't do it there and then. But in the morning when you go and do it, and for heaven's sake, do not seek praise for anything you have done. The likelihood of you becoming the white knight and getting praise for it is virtually nil. So, just accept it, do the job, party on. These are just a number of things. I'm not going to make this a long video, but things are different here. As I said, don't expect the old manor situation and don't get involved in an argument over it. You're not going to win. Even if you're in a store like the Americans especially, if they're unsatisfied with the service, they ask for a manager. The manager's not interested. If you don't like it, the attitude is, if you don't like it, don't come here. Because the standard of service is virtually the same all over the Philippines. The other thing is too, why things are very, very slow as far as service is concerned is, and imagine this, and I'm going to defend them in one respect. All you people in Germany and in Sweden and in Great Britain and the United States and Australia and New Zealand that are watching this, hopefully there'll be a few of you. Just imagine this. If something goes wrong, we can go to somebody. We have the social securities available to us. If we lose our job, we have unemployment. If not for an extended period of time, if there's an emergency, there is someone we can go, a government department there. Imagine living in a country where there is no safety net, you know, where the wages are a pittance. Whereas if you get injured, they laugh at you for getting injured rather than be sympathetic. You know, these are all the things. You know, I've often seen, well not often, but I've seen a number of times where people get injured at work. Now the response is the thing they call gagu, you gagu. Now you walked on that wet floor, you slipped over and probably broke or strained something or whatever. It's not the floor's fault, it's not the person that put the water on the floor, it's not the person who didn't put the sign up, it's you are a gagu. What an idiot for walking on that floor. There is no sympathy here. So if you come here and you get into trouble, there is no sympathy for you. You know, you can't go, oh poor me. A lot of Westerners like to, misery loves company in the West to a certain degree, so if something goes wrong with us, we'll go and talk to a mate about it, he'll sympathise, or a girlfriend in some ladies' cases, and they'll sympathise, and you feel rather uplifted, and they'll say, look, it could have happened to anyone. Here it's totally different. You know, if you get yourself into trouble, you are an idiot. And that's the attitude they have. And this can be very frustrating and annoying as well. Just getting back to the manager thing, so the Americans come here and and Australians come here and their service is lousy. Why is it taking so long? Okay, with no, I suppose, safety net or whatever, and a pittance of a wage, thievery, petty pilferage is huge in this country. And it's done by employees, it's done by people in stores, it's shoplifting or shop stealing, whatever you want to call it, you know, on a massive scale. And it's because, you know, like, unless they steal or acquire or lend or borrow or whatever, there's a good chance that they themselves and their kids will go hungry. So it's quite an event when you go into a major shopping centre, and it's, I don't know, 100 plus degrees in America, or it's close to 40 degrees and very humid, and all the shop assistants have got the same uniform on, and they're wearing stockings or pantyhose. And you think, why the hell would that be the uniform? Well, the reality is the reason they wear pantyhose is so they can't put small goods between their toes and walk out. They must have open toe shoes so they can be inspected. They are searched when they come in, they are searched when they leave. You know, this is a constant problem here. And the reason it's slow is the services and this type of thing. Your checkout chick will be doing the checkout, and she will be monitored almost like a pit boss in a casino by a manager, and they'll be watching, and then she'll get the money, and then she can only do X amount of customers coming through, and it's a very small amount before she has to reconcile the till. So she takes a till out. It's happened to me many times. You know, there'll be 3 people, you've been waiting for an hour, you finally get there and she'll take the till out, then go and reconcile the till, and someone else will come down, count the money and then reconcile the till, and they'll start all over again. It all takes time, and it's basically to stop pilferage, you know. So there's checks on checks on checks on checks. In smaller stores, someone will take the money, they'll present it to somebody else who'll count the money, who'll present it to a third person, usually the owner and the manager, who will get the change. The change will be checked by the second person, then given back to the first person who'll give it to you. You know, this all takes time. But anyway, there are a couple of things. I really would like some feedback as what you would like to know. I've a huge amount of information that may be helpful, but I'm really at a loss, and I don't want to be like everybody else here and do the generic stuff. And I don't want those viewers to think I'm picking on the Philippines. You know, like, you all know that this country has problems, and if we are at least considerate of those particular problems and the reasons why, you know, we can have a far better experience here. Eventually it will change, and probably not in my lifetime, but you know, if everyone can think positively and have constructive criticism and assist, it will eventually get better. So this is not knocking the Philippines. Well, that's about it. As I said again, this is brought to you by Dumaguete Expat Services Club. Look it up on Google. They're fabulous. They can do everything from background checks on girlfriends that you've met online. They can do suggestions for tradesmen. For immigration services, they can do everything. There's a small fee involved. I think it's about $10 per inquiry. But they're a huge resource that'll save you a great deal of money by doing it right in the first place. Anyway, again, subscribe please, comment please, negative or positive. You know, if it's just vindictive, I'll ignore it, but on the same token, I don't mind constructive criticism myself. Hope to see you next time. This is Phil in the Philippines, on Phil and Jen in the Philippines. Hit the thumbs up, share the video if you could. If you know any bloke that, even if they've got fellow wives and they're living in the country of origin, you know, they might like like to see it, they may be able to suggest things and go from there. Anyone that's contemplating coming to the Philippines, please come, even if it's only for a holiday. We can, if you get in touch with expat services, we can make it a lot easier for you. But spend the money, especially these days. Life is short. Just give it a go. Okay, it's Phil in the Philippines. Cheers for now.